Hey everybody, good afternoon and welcome back to Engage on UMFM 101.5. We missed you guys a lot, but today we're back with what I know will be such a wholesome as well as informative episode, knowing the people who are involved here. Today we're going to be featuring guests and the organizers from Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg. So Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg is an informative, action-based community group. They specialize in providing awareness, leadership towards Black and people of color initiatives in Winnipeg. They've taken on a handful of community projects ranging from family food hampers, community care packages, as well as organizing an emergency fund line for Black people. They were also the heart and foundation of one of the largest mobilizations and protests in Winnipeg history with the March for Justice for Black Lives in June of 2020. So we have a really exciting episode, and without further ado, you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Kameshia Hope.
I'm Jayda Hope.
I'm Mahlet.
Awesome. Nice to have you guys on. It's honestly something we've been trying to set up for a bit, but me and Josh here have been busy on our side and we've had a couple of things that we've run into. So we're just really excited to finally be able to get some information and perspective out to more people. And I guess one of the first questions that I have for you guys would be, when did you decide to officially form a group? Because we know that there was a lot of organization and noise going on last year surrounding the death of George Floyd, and as well as other things going on within the Black communities. And so there was a big resurgence of that movement at that time last summer. But was that when you guys had decided to officially form, or were you together already before that?
I can speak to that a bit just through the formation of the group. So basically, at the end of May, I posted a Facebook post about wanting to organize with other Black folks, and also on Instagram as well, and then just received a bunch. I remember receiving a bunch of messages from over 56 people saying I want to help or whatever. And then it was more or less the people in this group right now reaching out to me individually and stuff like that, and having actual tangible ideas, and that's what I was kind of looking for. And then from there it just became a group chat, and then it was 9 of us and now it's 4 of us, and it kind of became just this kind of thing that's happening because out of anger and frustration and the lack of organizing within Winnipeg amongst Black folks specifically. So this group came together as more of a spur of the moment thing. And I think we were all thinking, even though it was a Facebook post that I made specifically, but I feel like all of us as Black folks were all thinking about this individually, and then we're able to come together through this group and just have this, wanting to say something and wanting to do something. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to add.
I just want to add that we wouldn't be here without Mahlet. I think that they downplay a lot of the work that they've done and the work that they did in the beginning to kind of get us all together. But without them, we wouldn't be here. I know for myself, I was one of the people who was really upset and really frustrated around that time, just with all the deaths that were happening. And then also the fact that people seem to be focusing more on the American deaths, even though there were Black deaths, such as Regis, who was Afro-Indigenous, on this side as well, happening around that time, just being upset, but not really knowing what to do and being oh my gosh, I'm just one person, what can I do? But then a group of us came together and we were able to do something really amazing. But it's all thanks to Mahlet. We wouldn't be here without Mahlet. We wouldn't be here without the collective working together, but ultimately she is what brought us together.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know Caden and myself were both in attendance at the rally in June last year, and that was definitely a very beautiful experience, a very peaceful organization that I definitely enjoyed, and I'm very grateful I got to experience that. And I was curious to hear from each of you what your takeaway was experiencing that, but from the perspective of the organizers who put it all together. How were you feeling after what was going through your head in the weeks after that rally?
I feel it was super intense for all of us, and I know Jayda and Kameshia were very confident about the turnout, and they seem to know what to expect. But I can be kind of pessimistic sometimes, and I wasn't expecting such a huge turnout. So that felt really, really powerful and really nice to be surrounded by so many people and to just feel like we were being heard. And I think what was so important about what happened to George Floyd was that it brought so much attention to that moment, because to me personally, and I think to a lot of other Black people, there was nothing particularly exceptional about his death. This is not a new experience or something to witness for Black people. And it almost was like, okay, why now? Like, why does everyone care now? But like Jayda said, Mahlet really took the initiative to do something at that time. And whatever the reason for that was, like, it was really nice to see, after a lot of deaths happening, to see so many people come together and say that we're not okay with that.
Yeah, like I completely agree with what's been said already, in the sense, just like to this day, like when I watch videos back, I like still get chills and I almost start crying because it was just so intense. And like the week leading up to it, it was so intense because yeah, having interactions with people, having to like, I personally never organized anything like this large, and that was just of me just being like, I'm angry and frustrated and I'm sad, and like, yeah, as Ella mentioned before, it's like, this is not new. It's like, as Black people, we've seen this for decades. Like thinking about Rodney King, thinking about all the different times Black folks have been brutalized and have been murdered in Canada and in America and across the world. So just like that moment was so special to see people come together. I think also during a pandemic, it was also really special because we haven't seen each other in so long, and seeing people and like really come out and really care and like offering to help and wanting to just really be there for us, and just not even just for us specifically, but for the Black community here in Winnipeg and across Canada. And like, yeah, to this day, I even think about now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. And that many people came, and it was so successful, and we were able to do it peacefully without the police presence there too. I think it's super good to emphasize that as well. Like the community really came together and wanted to do something. We did really well. And to this day, I think I'll talk about it for the rest of my life, and then I'll be like an old lady like, oh my God, yeah, I did that thing, and you know, whatever. But yeah.
Very powerful moments for sure, like being there from outside perspective, not being someone who was directly affiliated with organizing it, but just attended, was, yeah, it was super powerful. So just thank you all for what you've all been doing, and for that rally, and for, you know, the 7 days no peace and everything you've been working on. Just personally wanted to thank you all for that.
And if I can just add to that, I feel that as people of color, we suffer in silence. So to have a space created that was safe, where we were able to share our frustration, our pain, our suffering, and then speak out on what we want. Being able to do that was very empowering, and we were able to give a lot of people hope. So yeah. It was nice to see.
The rally was like crazy, but then I think, I don't know what, and this is all on me. Like, I'm really sorry, y'all, that I put us through that 7 days of no peace right after we did that rally. That was my idea, and I thought that was going to be great. It was like, oh, it's going to be like mini rallies, and we really like underestimated how exhausting it was going to be, how hot it was going to be, how heavily we were going to be policed, even though we were only out for like an hour. But overall, it was a good experience. It was definitely, like Mahlet and everyone else has said, like, it's crazy to look back and be like, damn, we did that. Like, we actually did that. Like, that wasn't a dream. Like, that was real. And thinking about all of the hardships it took to get there from all of us, like all of the sacrifice. And then, of course, all the sacrifice of those who came before us to be able to even do this kind of thing in our community. It's amazing. So it's amazing to just kind of be a part of that.
It absolutely is. Yeah, that was an incredible week. That was an incredible protest. One of the most powerful experiences I've been a part of, just seeing so many people together for one cause, one reason, and understanding, you know, why they're there. They're there for each other. So that was, yeah, that, like on my side too, a personal thank you to you guys for setting that up. You touched a little bit on, you know, some of the powerful things that you noticed that came from that. Like you mentioned hope and providing people hope, which you can see when you show up there, right? You see that people are there and they're happy and they're excited that we're all together, and people are there and they're crying and they're sad that things have happened. So there's a lot of like emotion that goes on in these places. And to me, being from the outside perspective, I'm able to see some of the impacts it has on people, the impacts it has on the communities afterwards, right? As organizers, though, I'm interested to hear what have been some of like the significant changes that you guys have noticed, or the significant impacts that you guys have noticed from when you started out, you know, wanting to spread that message or get that message out to where things are heading now.
I mean, you mentioned emotion, and it was extremely emotional for all of us as organizers, and I think all the people in attendance as well. And like, honestly, I feel like that was such a powerful thing when we like stormed City Hall. It felt so cathartic, and it felt like we were just all able to just express how frustrated we are and how disappointed we are in politicians here, and to just be there screaming at the top of your lungs and have tears streaming down your face and making all this noise and see people physically, as opposed to, like online support, which you can't, like you feel it, but you don't really feel it and see it. So to be there together and just be able to express and like show the pain that we were in, I think that was like so important. And I'm so glad that we were able to process anti-Blackness together in that way. So that was definitely a big change that I noticed. And I feel like there's also a lot of other initiatives that started shortly after we did that, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I think we're, probably inspired by us. And I think also at some other protests and rallies in the summer that followed, there were certain touches that they added that were probably also inspired by us, probably because, as far as I know, we were the first people to add those into our rallies. So I feel like the fact that we tried to cover as many bases as we could possibly think of to cover also reminded other people, okay, here are things that we should be doing. Like, here are best practices that we should incorporate into activism and organizing in Winnipeg. So I think those are some significant changes that we saw.
I think making people believe in themselves was a huge thing, where they actually felt that they had a voice and they were speaking out and advocating for others and holding people accountable publicly, whether it be in their workspace, no matter where it was. People were being held accountable after the rally. And it kind of creates a safer space for people of color, because it's not just us having to stick up for ourselves, because we can do so much. But when everybody comes together and advocate for one another, it's a powerful thing. So just seeing people believing in themselves and having a voice and speaking out and manifesting their own dreams, their own vision on what they can do to add to their community. Like, for example, Community 204. That was a great to see Danny just step up and being inspired by what we did, and just like what he's doing is taking off. And it's just really nice to just see even the young people coming together in the schools and calling out their teachers, whatever it may be. So I just really appreciated that. And I think in all of this, it helped restore my hope, my own hope within myself and my community and in the human race, to know that love still exists. We have to learn how to communicate. We have to learn how to be kind. We have to learn how to be mindful. And I think if we treat others the way we want to be treated, the world would be a much better place.
Don't know a better way could be put. Can't think of anything that could. So it's pretty surreal just being able to sit down and talk to you all. I mean, I remember witnessing the extreme emotion and just all the energy at these rallies, and now being able to directly ask you about that's been pretty awesome. A lot of this has been going on, I suppose, in terms of the rallies and organizations you've done. This has been since the COVID-19 pandemic originally started, and I was just curious if you could all kind of touch on what that aspect of things was like, dealing with these tragedies that are taking place, and then also keeping in mind the fact that there's a global pandemic taking place at the same time. Like, what was that kind of, what was it like balancing those and doing all your work through that?
Yeah, it must have been a huge challenge.
It's kind of weird because we started in the pandemic, so we don't have any experience not working under conditions like this. So I think the biggest difference from last year than this year is last year there was a lot more public support for BIPOC groups in general going out and protesting, and just this year, because the case numbers have been so much higher, people are afraid, but not realizing that when you go out and you protest, you can do it in a safe way and you don't have to be afraid, because then that's just perpetuating that cycle that we're trying to break of, all of the police violence and not being able to support community and all of those other things. So last year there was a lot more public support. Last year we were able to have that reassurance from politicians and other people that folks wouldn't be persecuted for attending and for participating. And this year we've seen that that's kind of not the case. They are willing to fine and charge people heavily for organizing. So it's just kind of been a balancing act, and understanding that, yes, we are organizers and like we're we're a part of the community, and people label us as radicals, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you have to go and put your community directly in harm's way at all times. So just kind of trying to figure out new ways to fundraise and organize and protest and take up space without putting people directly in danger, knowing that we can't help them out of it with covering legal costs or providing lawyers, things like that.
I think too, I want to add in a sense, just like I remember last year, even then there was a little bit of backlash of us even organizing as a collective and being out in public. And I think something that was proposed a lot, and when we did have conversations with other people as to why we're doing this, is because I think regardless of the pandemic or not, Black people are dying, right? It's like Indigenous people are being shot by the police, Black people are being shot by the police. So the pandemic is just an extra level of the oppressions that Black people succumb to. So the pandemic was something that's like obviously very scary, brings a lot of anxiety, brings a lot of like nervousness to people, to the public, but at the same time too, it's like there are more chances of a Black man being murdered by the police than a virus, right? And then even for this year, it was definitely difficult to organize because, yeah, as Jayda mentioned, the high cases, but something I've been thinking about too, it's like if someone we know in the community was murdered by the police tomorrow, will we all go out or will we say no because of a pandemic, right? And you think about the families, right? Think about other people, and like, yes, we can definitely do things safely, but yeah, if we think about, I guess, like proposing a question of just like, yeah, if someone died tomorrow, if someone's murdered tomorrow, what would we do? Would we stay at home and say, well, we have to like isolate and not be around each other, or would we show up for that family? Would we show up for our community when we need to? So I think it's just, yeah, we're not radicals. We're just doing what the community needs, right? And like people can label us as like going above and beyond, but you think of other cities and larger cities as well, like Toronto, and who have a longer and more intense activist history, they would do the exact same thing of like, if there's someone that died tomorrow, they would show up. So it makes me think about questions around that and just like the importance of coming together regardless of the pandemic or not, because people are still dying regardless.
And
Absolutely.
The nature of anti-Blackness is so ingrained into every institution. COVID is disproportionately affecting Black people too. If you look at the stats that the province has released, Black people and African people, which they have categorized differently in their stats for whatever reason, are the second most impacted racial demographic by COVID rates. So like whether it's COVID killing us or the police killing us or not being able to find good, safe employment that provides you a livable wage killing us, Black people are dying from anti-Blackness, and organizing is part of the way that we fight that we say we don't deserve that we demand better. So there's like never a good time to organize, but there's also never a good time to be oppressed. So, you know, it's not like we want to do it, really. We don't really have a choice if we want anything to change for us, for our children, for our families, and for all Black people.
And regardless of what goes on out there, Black people are still struggling, and we may not be out there in the public's eye, but behind the scenes, we are still helping and we are still changing lives. There are programs we fund and run behind the scenes. So we are still active in the community.
You were mentioning that you're still active. At this moment in time, is there anything that we could share with our listeners? Anything being planned that can be announced yet at all, or anything like that? Or
in terms of like announcements for events, we usually try to keep those like as low key as possible, till as close to the date as possible, just because it causes a lot less harassment for us, whether it's from police or public. But in terms of, I guess we could all speak about our own personal projects, and these have kind of been ongoing. But yeah, so I have a hamper project, which just provides hampers for folks in the community who needs them, prioritizing Black and Indigenous folks and prioritizing families, but ultimately anybody who asks for a hamper receives one. So donations can just be sent directly to Justice for Black Lives, like our email, and for that project. But yeah, it's one thing that I'm passionate about is food security. I just think it's really important for people to be able to eat. Like it's one of the very basic things that you need to survive, but it's also one of those things like a lot of families, and this is from personal experience, right? Knowing, are you going to pay rent? Or are you going to be able to like provide groceries for that month? And that's not a decision that anybody should have to face, especially Black and Indigenous folks, and especially other people of color who already go through enough hardship. So that's kind of my personal project. And I do a bunch of other things on the side, but this is the one with the group.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is there anything else the other three of you would like to add to that?
I'm currently working on doing some programs in the community with the youth surrounding mental health. We're in a mental health crisis, and suicide rate is huge amongst teenagers right now. So that's where my fundraising and focus is on. And now that the lockdown is off, hopefully we will have it up and running soon.
I also have a project with the group Fund for Black Sex Workers. So people can contact Justice for Black Lives. They can donate to the email like Jayda said and just put in the memo line or whatever that it's for that fund. But yeah, people can also come to my workplace, 823 Ellis, between 1 and 6, Monday to Friday. And yeah, it's just money to support sex workers. And something I found interesting about doing that project is, like, before I started it, I wasn't really sure how much it was needed. And I asked a lot of people who work with sex workers, like, you know, do you think this is needed? Like, do you know a lot of Black sex workers? And a lot of people seemed kind of unsure. They didn't know a lot of Black sex workers. But then once I started doing the project, so many people started showing up. And I think that's like something common that people trying to organize for Black people in the city maybe come across, is like kind of a general attitude, oh, well, that's not needed because, you know, that isn't really an issue here. But then once you just do something, you see how much it is needed and how much it's appreciated. And I think you could say that for our rallies. Like, you know, I feel like a lot of people who aren't Black in Winnipeg who were kind of like, oh, you know, well, I don't really think anti-Blackness is an issue here. But then the response showed that's definitely not the case. And so I would also like to say to folks who are, you know, thinking of something they want to do and something they want to see in the city, is to just do it and then let the response show you how much your work is valuable.
And I also have a project as well. I'm kind of speaking to what Ella said. I guess like there is an erasure of Black people in Winnipeg for sure. And that's like the response of like, this is not needed and stuff. So for myself, my project is supporting Black, queer, and trans folks in Winnipeg or Manitoba. And just, it's a kind of a simple service of like, if you're Black and you're queer and you're trans and within that LGBTQ plus group, you can be able to access funds. And right now we're currently fundraising because it was started in November of end of November last year, and then it was running up until I would say maybe February, March. And between that time, I'm really happy to say that we were able to redistribute $10,000 to like Black queer folks and trans folks in Manitoba. So that was just super nice to know, because I think for myself as a Black queer femme, and I think a lot of times we are raised in the city as like Black queer people, and in the scene as when you go out and stuff like that in the past and stuff, you feel like maybe there's like 3 of us who are also Black and queer. But this list that I have, which I'm very grateful to have access to these folks and be able to redistribute funds and stuff like that, there is more than 4 of us. There's 40 plus people on the list right now, and it's always growing. So if you are Black and you're queer and you're trans and you need access to funds, you can email me at mahletc311@gmail.com and say like, here's my name, here's my email, you'll be added to the list. And I'm hoping to be able to redistribute funds towards the end of the summer, just right now because we're fundraising and stuff. And then as everyone mentioned before, if you want to donate to that fund specifically, just put in the memo line, LGBTQ fund, Black and trans queer fund. Long as it just says something around queerness in the memo, it works. But I think that all our personal projects are just really important just because that they all touch on very different things, but they all come together in making sure that Black folks have access to basic necessities, which is something that is super important here in Winnipeg, just because, yeah, there isn't a lot of Black-centered funding, unfortunately. And I think we do it in a really grassroots way where it's like, what is your need? We can give you money for it. And as long as we have enough funds for what, we do our best to like meet that need. And as well, we take general donations as well, just to support families of police brutality, and or if the families have someone who's been murdered by the police or stuff like that. So we do take different avenues of donations through personal projects, but also general donation of just like helping families in the community or helping people in the community who don't maybe necessarily align with what our projects are specifically for. So yeah.
And just to quickly add on to what Mahlet's saying about our general donations, we also find like, and I know Mahlet and myself will have people who just DM us and are Black and they need some extra support. And that's also a good way of reaching us. If you need like emergency support and you're Black or Indigenous, just kind of tell us basically what you need and how much you need, and we'll take it to the group, come to a consensus, and usually we'll get it back to you really quickly. So general donations are always needed for that as well. We just kind of like to be able to provide support in any way that we can. Just because, like everyone has mentioned, Black erasure is so prevalent, it's really hard for people to get help. And then a lot of Black people feel like they don't deserve it, or like other people need it more. So we really just, if you need help, like reach out to us. We'll do the best that we can.
Awesome. That's
Wow.
And just to add to that, we have distributed just under 100,000 to the community of Winnipeg.
wow.
Wow, absolutely so inspiring.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's such a jaw-dropping figure. But yeah, that's amazing. Just another personal thank you. I mean, after hearing about all the other individual projects you're all running, you know, the city definitely needs all of you, and it's just beautiful that you're all coming to support the city in that way. So thank you. And just to make sure, I want to highlight the Instagram and the e-transfer email. Could we go over those one more time?
Good question. Sometimes I'm like, what is our email? What is our Instagram? But okay, I'm pretty sure, yeah, our Instagram is Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg, WPG. If you type in Justice for Black Lives, it will be the first thing that comes up. And then for our email, I know for sure it's Justice, so JUSTICE, number 4, Black, so BLACK, lives, LIVES, WPG @gmail.com. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yes, that's right.
Dope, cool. Remember our emails.
And also, if I can add to that, people are also welcome to support us as organizers to help us continue to do what we do in the community, because we do work full time and we do have other responsibilities outside of this. So we do give our free time for it. So they can also help support us at J4BLW organizers with an S at the end @gmail.com. Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg organizers @gmail.com.
Awesome. All right. Great. Just wanted to make sure we highlight all that on the record. And if there's any other avenues that have not been mentioned.
Also, if people want to go check out our Instagram and go to the link tree on there, we do have people on there that we do support, and we would like to, people can make contributions there as well.
Yes, please donate to the GoFundMe that we have for the Machar Madut family. He was a Black man who is experiencing a mental health crisis and was murdered by the Winnipeg police in his own home, unfortunately. And he left behind a bunch of beautiful children who we've had the opportunity of meeting and hanging out with. And they're lovely, and they don't deserve to have any capitalistic strain while dealing with the hardship of losing their father in such a horrific way. So please just donate to that and continue to support families who have lost loved ones due to police brutality, both in the city and outside of the city.
Yeah, in our link tree as well, we have our website, which was just recently made. So you can kind of learn about all of us individually as people, learn about like who we are as a group, how we came together. You can also see photos from last summer as well, from the rally. So maybe if you weren't there, maybe you weren't able to come, maybe, yeah, because of the pandemic and stuff like that, be able to see what happened. And yeah, that's also a way to contact us as well through our website. You can access through our email and stuff. So yeah, that's also in our link tree on our Instagram.
Awesome. So then I think, if there's nothing else any of you would like to throw out there for our listeners, then I think we're more or less set to wrap up here.
Yeah, seriously, super incredible. I was really excited to get into this conversation, and now I'm even more excited just for other people to hear it. I'm literally inspired every day by just all of you guys and all the work you do within our city. And yeah, I'm just so excited going forward to know that we're within a city and within a community that loves to do these things and that puts their time and efforts towards it. So thank you so much for joining us with that and just sharing all of your experiences.
Seriously, thank you all so much.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for supporting us, because it also means a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Really appreciate that you took your time out of your day to come on here. And being that this does air on 101.5 UMFM, something we like to do on our show, just as we wrap up, we like to ask our guests if they would choose what song we'll play following the interview. So if there's any songs any of you have really been into lately.
Yes, oh my God, I love that. I'm really into Are You With That by Vince Staples. It's a bop.
Dope. Yes, it is. Then, yeah, I think that'll conclude the interview then. So yeah, one last time, just thank you all for taking the time out of your day to come and speak to us and provide us answers and insight on such an amazing and powerful organization. It's been really great being able to talk to you. So yeah, this has been great.
Thank you.
This has been Engage with Josue DeVie, Kate Jones, and Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg. And it's been incredible. We will see you guys next week for our next episode. Thanks so much for joining us.